Welcome back. This is episode 2, if you like, in our series of exploring how to get the most out of OneDrive when we're working from home or working remotely. Our first in the series explored getting into OneDrive and uploading files. Now what we're going to do is sink our teeth into one of the more interesting parts of OneDrive and one of the more well-used parts of OneDrive, and that is sharing. Now, at the moment, if you're not currently using any kind of cloud storage, you may share documents with people by sending them an email and attaching a copy of a document you want them to see to that email, which is fine, but does have some limitations. If you're trying to collaborate on a document with someone, you may find that you're sort of playing a game of document ping pong, sending it backwards and forwards amongst each other. The problem with that is it then becomes confusing as to exactly which copy, the one you've got, the one they've got, the one that you've got from a week ago, the one you've got tomorrow, which one is actually the most up to date. So, how do we get around that? Well, what we do is we use OneDrive to store our document, and instead of sending someone a copy of it, instead we give them access to the same copy that we are looking at. So how do we do this? Well, I'm going to target one of the documents that I uploaded in the previous video, which is all the way down in my list here, my OneDrive presentation. Let's imagine that I'm working on a presentation with somebody else in my organization. So how do I give them access to it? Well, within the OneDrive console that I've got open here, which you get to through office.com, click on the OneDrive icon, I can right click on my presentation, and when I do so, I get this contextual menu here. My options along the top also change because I now have this presentation selected, and the one that I'm interested in is this option here to share this document. You'll notice at the moment in the sharing column the metadata for this particular document is set to private, which means only I can actually access this. Let's change that. When I click on share, it opens up this dialog box here. There are certain things that we need to consider when we're setting up sharing. And the first thing is the link security. You'll see it's talking about sending a link. What it's going to do effectively is it is going to send a hyperlink to the document or to the item you're sharing via email to the person you're inviting. The first thing we need to consider, therefore, is the link security. And at the moment you'll see that this says anyone with the link can edit. Now, your organization's default settings may differ. This is what the default is for Office 365. I've not tweaked that. You may find that actually in your organization things are locked down so you can't just share it with anyone, because what this actually means is anyone in the world who gets their hands on this link will be able to access and edit that document. That's probably a wider sharing net than we're actually looking to cast. So let's take a look at how we can restrict this. When we click on that security, we have a number of options then that we can set. We can either leave it at sharing with anyone in the world, or we can use the second option down, the blue briefcase option here. What that does is it limits it so that only people in your organization who get the link will be able to access this document. That means that if you send it to your colleague, you're happy for them to forward that on to another colleague and another colleague and another colleague in order for them to be able to open it. You're ultimately saying, this document that I've got, I'm happy for anyone in my organization to be able to get in there and to be able to access it. To be honest, if you've got documents you're happy for anybody to access that works in your organization, put them into a shared workspace, put them into Teams, put them into SharePoint. Don't leave them in your OneDrive. What you'll actually find is that the option you want most of the time is the one at the bottom here, specific people. This is the most like for like option with regards to replacing sending someone an email, because what we do here is we specify people, and if you are on my list of people I've specified, great, you can access this document. If you're not on my list of people I've specified, then you can't access this document. Think of this as being like your birthday party. You invite the people that you want to come. If you're not invited, you just don't bother telling those people they're not invited. If they're not on the list, they're not coming in. So we'll go with specific people. We then choose what level of access we want those specific people to have. And our options are to allow them to edit, to allow them to read, or to allow them to view. Now the default here is to allow them to edit, which will enable them to do everything up to actually renaming or deleting your document. They can't do that. You can do that, but they can't. They'll be able to make changes to it. They'll be able to add things to my PowerPoint presentation, etc. But they won't be able to delete it because it's my document. I want them to collaborate with them. I don't want them trashing the whole thing. However, if I just want someone to cast their eyes over it and give me a bit of feedback, they don't need to be able to edit it. Actually, all they need is to be able to see it. And so if I remove their ability to edit, it then actually gives them read access. That enables them to look at the document, but also to download a copy of it for themselves. Now, I might not want that. I might want to say, actually, you can look at this document I've got, but I don't want you taking your own copy, because of course if they take their own copy, they can do whatever they like with that, and I have no control over it. So we then have this option to block them from downloading it. That basically gives them view access. They can view the copy online. That's your lot. No more access to that document than that. In my particular instance, I actually want people to collaborate. I want them to be able to make changes. Interestingly, because the document is stored online, they'll actually be able to make changes at the same time as me, which is pretty mind-blowing if you're used to opening a document from a network drive and seeing that horrible message of Janet's got this document open, you need to wait for them to close it, or you can just get a read-only copy. Those days are gone if you've got an online document, so really is worth storing our documents on these platforms. Once I've set my security, who can access, the level of access they've got, I click apply, and then back on that previous page, it now says, instead of anyone with the link can edit, it's only people I specify. If someone I've not specified gets the link, they're out of luck. No level of access. It'll tell them you do not have permission to access this resource. I then need to choose who I'm going to invite. Again, depending on your organizational settings, you may only be able to share with people in your organization. It may be that you can't share with people outside of it. You will need to check with your organization what those rules are set to. Here, I've actually got the default rules, which you can share with anyone, and you can either use the mailing list, so what you're used to in terms of your address list with finding people for emails, etc. So if I start typing, there we go, got my colleague Martin there. I can either just use their name and choose them like so, or alternatively, I can actually use a full email address like so and add them accordingly. So a couple of options as to how I can do that. You then have the ability to add an optional message. That just gets included in the email, so don't worry too much about putting war and peace in here, but if you do want to give them some context as to exactly what you're doing, then you can pop a message in here. There we go. Once I'm happy with all of that, I can click send. And what it does is it sends a link to the people that I've invited. However, if I'm honest, I don't really want to have to go trawling through my mailbox, through my inbox, looking for a particular email every time I've invited somebody or been invited to collaborate on a particular document. Now that sounds far too much like hard work. Fortunately, what the OneDrive interface does is it actually keeps track of the documents that have been shared with you for easy access. You'll notice as well, by the way, that my sharing column, the metadata against my presentation, has now changed to shared, which shows me that I've shared it with someone. The place that I'll find things I've shared and things that have been shared with me is under this shared section on the left-hand side of the OneDrive interface. When I go in there, it will show me things that have been shared with me, as well as things that have been shared by me, both of which are really important. You'll see under shared by me, I can see this OneDrive presentation that I've just shared. So this part of the OneDrive interface lets you keep track of the things other people have shared with you, as well as the things that you've shared with other people. And that should populate more or less in real time. To be honest with you, when it comes to these systems, we have something, unit of measurement that we call a Microsoft minute, which is anything from 30 seconds up to about 24 hours. So once you've shared something, it should appear in there instantaneously, but give it a Microsoft minute to make sure that Make sure you've given it enough time to actually appear. Okay, so that's how we share documents. You'll get an email, it'll pop up in this part of the interface. But what about if I change my mind? What if I want to unshare a document? If I go back to my OneDrive presentation, so if I go back to My Files, which takes me into my OneDrive, and then if I scroll down in the list of documents that I have here, there we go. So there's my document there. When I right click on it, I don't get there's no unshare option available to me. What there is, however, is manage access. And when I choose that, on the right hand side, pops up with something called a charm, which shows me who currently has access. Now this is incredibly important, especially if you can't quite remember who you shared something with. You can see I've got a link that's giving access, and the people that have that level of access are me, my alternate email address, my Quanta email address, and my colleague Martin. I can then, for those individuals, choose to remove their access individually, or alternatively, I can stop sharing altogether, which will boot everybody out. What that then means is when I refresh my page, so you see at the moment it's showing as shared. However, if I refresh my OneDrive, and just give that a second to reload the interface. When I take a look at my PowerPoint presentation, having reloaded, so I've got the most up-to-date information on my OneDrive, you'll see it's now set to private. And if I go back into Manage Access, you'll see there are no sharing links, and I still have direct access. Now you'll notice I'm in here as the owner. Interestingly, you can never lose ownership of things in your OneDrive. So what I mean by that is that people can't stage a mutiny and steal your documents off you. If you own it, you own it. You will always have access. That's true of OneDrive, not so much of some of the other areas, but we'll cover those in other series around some of the functionality of 365. So that will have removed other people's access. They'll still have received an email, but now if they click on that link, it will say you don't have access. It will also remove it from the Shared With Me area within OneDrive itself. If somebody is currently working on a document, when you remove their access, it will boot them out immediately. It doesn't give them 20 minutes, half an hour to finish what they were doing, or just give them a warning and ask them to save it. It kicks them off immediately. So if you've shared with someone that you didn't intend to, you are safe in the knowledge that by removing their access, they lose that access straight away. So really easy to give people access to your documents, really easy to take it away again. So if you wanted somebody's input on a presentation, an Excel document, a report, anything like that, share it, give them access. Once you've got their feedback, good or bad, remove their access after the fact, which is very different to sending someone an email with a document attached, because at that point, of course, you can't get that back. It's gone. You know, you've sent it to them. So as a result, this is also more secure because you've got much more control over your data than those alternate means. Okay, pretty simple. So that concludes this particular video. In future videos, we're going to take a look at what happens when you delete your documents and how you can roll back changes that you've made. So look forward to seeing you on future videos.